Hola mi gente, Ms. Malcolm Hughes here. Today we are going to discuss the series, The Art of Hood Love. I have so much to say about this series, so let's just get right into it. As I've discussed, we are talking about The Art of Hood Love, the 3.5 books in the series so far. I'm going to start in reverse order. I'm going to talk about the 0.5, or what I'm deeming the fourth book, which is the interlude, and then I'll go back and start again at book 1. The reason for that is, 1, that's the one I've read most recently, and 2, I just love it. And I want to talk about it first. So let's get into it. Book 4 is Lessons from a Hidden Treasure, and it takes us on the journey and the story of 2 individuals. We get Treasure, the little sister that we come to discover throughout the first 3 books, that Savvy has a little sister. Technically half sister, but we don't play half games, so she has a little sister. And we also get the story of Pierre, who is the little cousin, Shabu's little cousin. That's his right hand, his hitter. He is also the little brother of Los. Now, I must confess that when I first started this book, I was like, these aren't the characters I wanted to hear about. Treasure, Pierre, they were cool supporting cast, but they're not the supporting characters that I would have wanted full stories for. Let me say this at the onset. Antoinette Sherrill, she knew something that I did not know, and that is that I absolutely needed the story of Treasure and Pierre. So let me tell you how these 2 connect without giving too much away. In the initial part of the series, Pierre has a situation in which he has to go away for a period of time. In the process of getting ready for that, he ends up leaving something of value with Treasure. He ends up running into her and leaving something with her that she later gives to Shabu. That's without giving too much away. But the fact that she was willing to hold him down in that moment gets a certain level of respect and loyalty from not only him, but the entire family. And so once Pierre is able to return, we now know that this random girl that he bumped into is actually related to Savvy, so that puts her into the fold. One thing I love about this series is in by love, out by blood, right? So once you're in the fold, you're in the fold, you're in the family, period. And so Treasure is fortunate to have been put in this position where she is in this fold, and she does get something she's been looking for so desperately, which is family. And so once Pierre returns, there's still this natural chemistry. There was an initial spark. Y'all know I love initial spark and attraction, one of my favorite genres of romance, and so that's still there. Here's the issue. Pierre has a lot going on with X number of baby mamas. They want his time, they want his energy, they want his money, right? They want his body. And Treasure, she's not completely innocent, but she's young. She's 19. She doesn't really have the experience in the background. And it's clear from the onset that this is going to be a tricky relationship. And in my notes, I remember saying, Pierre is a bad influence on Treasure. He needs to figure out his own stuff because he distracts her from her goals, and I'm not here for it. In that same breath, I also say, why are hood dudes so charismatic? So that's clear from the onset. What I did not see happening over time, and which was beautiful to witness honestly, was the evolution and growth of their relationship. How it was actually built on a genuine connection. Now, within that genuineness, there was toxicity, and there is the word of twin flame used that I'm not sure I agree with, but maybe in the sense that they allow each other to see their highest selves, right? Treasure sees his potential in a way that no one else does. The issue is, I don't know if Pierre does the same for Treasure. He holds her down though, and maybe that's what she needs, right? She already has the vision. She's the visionary. She needs the support, and that's what he offers. So in that case, I can see it. That deep love there though. It was a little bit of the back and forth of running and chasing, but you shouldn't have to chase your twin flame. But that's a whole other lesson that we're not getting into today. So with that, their story does evolve and grow. Now, another thing I could say from the onset was I didn't like the position that their relationship was putting Treasure in. Because like I said, Pierre had a lot going on with his baby mamas, especially Lexi. Lexi was one of his loves. He's had 3 great loves in his life. One is a chick from way back when he used to play basketball. Another is Lexi, and then he has a third. And so I just stopped from the onset. I said, this is not going to go well. I said, when Lexi finds out what's happening, she's going to spaz, and all of these things come to fruition. However, what I do like about it is how everything played out. But before we get to that result, I do want to talk about the way in which Antoinette Sherrill wrote trauma. Sometimes when and she did a good job of that in other books, and I'll discuss those as well with Shabu. But here with Pierre, it was even more prevalent in the sense that when you see people making these decisions, especially when you see dudes who are in the streets, or people who are in the streets for that matter, you sometimes forget that when they're making these life or death like decisions, that there's still a human behind it with real emotions who is impacted by the choices that they're making. And we got to see that so much here with Pierre. And his anxiety, he had really bad anxiety, undiagnosed, self-treating with lean and marijuana, which we see so much in real life. I know mad people who treat their anxiety through those means for different reasons, right? 1, they're not going to go see a shrink. 2, they may work in careers where you actually cannot have those problems, right? Like, it would put your job at jeopardy. So people do it for different type of reasons just to cope. So there's a lot of self-medicating going on in the hood that we should talk about more. But we see that here, and Treasure, we also see her grappling with her complicated grief and her loss and how she's been dealing with that primarily and solely herself, and the real ways her depression is impacting her livelihood, and how different her life would be if she didn't have this newfound family and support system. So I absolutely loved all of that. Those are 1000% issues within the Black community that we need to highlight and focus on more. So I love what was happening here with those issues in a very real way, and in a form that felt authentic to these characters and to life. So really appreciated that. Love that. The writing here was so good. I became really invested in our characters in a way that I didn't foresee or anticipate. To one point, even in my notes, and I'm going to share this with you all, it said, I was like, okay, P. And that's Pierre. It was like, I'm gassing him up in his first studio session, like, I'm there, LOL. I was like, that's good writing and has me invested in the characters. And so I want to read that excerpt to y'all. I don't know if it's going to hit the same, but I want to try it. And so Pierre is nervous in the studio. He's making a career shift, right? He's finding a new dream that Treasure helps him realize. Something he's always been doing, she just helps him realize it and formulate it and actually make it concrete and do something about it. And so Pierre is finally getting over his nerves. He's talking a little bit to get himself gassed up and ready to spit. So it starts with, it says, it's getting dark out this bee. Pierre started in a low tone with a smirk playing on his face. That's when it gets spooky. Iggas start folding and your partners show their true colors because they think Iggas can't see. Your ops is lurking, but your real enemies is closer than you think. Ish, you never know who to trust out this MFer. But guess what? And then it says, silence filled the room until the beat dropped, making Treasure bounce in excitement. I was also bouncing in excitement at this point. He said, I still ain't scared, Igga. Y'all putting prices on my head. I still ain't dead, Igga. And she hollered out the verse she memorized, hyping him up. When I tell y'all I was in here, yeah, P, get him, P. As if I was really there, as if this was a real character who was overcoming all of his trials and tribulations. I felt it so deeply. I still feel it right now. That's great storytelling. The way in which this book comes together, I knew it was going to be messy, but the mess is rooted in healing and forgiveness. And man, when I tell y'all, I shed a couple of tears. I'm not gonna hold you. I shed a couple of tears. I ended up writing, I said, this is my favorite book in the series. I know this was a setup for Relic's story, so Relic is next. So this is considered to be an interlude. I said, but baby, this is the one for me. I didn't know I needed, and that stole my whole heart and had me staying up until 4 a.m. on a work night. Go to 3. And if you know, you know. Read the book. It was so good. It had all of the things you love from urban fiction or street fiction, but the writing was so well done. It was an amazing story that started in one place and took me to another place that I did not foresee. I just appreciated this journey so much. It was just so good. And I loved it immensely. Like, I can't say enough about what I loved about it. Just the progression, the growth, the way that we saw these real characters and we see where they started. We saw the transformation, and it happened in a way that was so authentic and true to the characters. It roped you in. You could see everything. You felt like you were in it. It's one of the ones that really felt like I was in a movie. And it was beautiful. As you see, I'm doing their hand symbol, and like, it's just that level of investment and engagement, and it was so good. And I love their love story, and I want to see more of them. Like, I know this was considered an interlude, but I want more. And in Relic's story, I know this was a setup for us to understand how Relic became involved in his new industry when we get the next book, which is the story of Relic. Relic isn't my favorite brother, but I did say in my notes, I was like, I need Relic's story asexually, because he had a lot of history and background. He had a lot going on, and so I do want that, but I need more Treasure and Pete. They're my favorite couple. This is my favorite book of the whole series. It is a read now. I don't know why you're not already reading it. I do think that you should start with book 1. I think you should start at the beginning of the series. That makes this one so much more worth it. And as I said in my May wrap-up video, book 3 is my least favorite. So for her to have gone from that to this, oh baby, I'm back invested. I was gonna read the Relic story anyway, but now I'm 1000% reading it and ready for the drop. So with that, let's circle back to the first book. I spoke about this in my May review, so these will get less time, but book 1 is setting up the history and the story of Savvy and Michi, who are cousins, and they are important to the whole entire storyline. So in this first book, we learn about the trauma and pain that Savvy and Michi have been enduring, literally the house of horrors that they've grown up in. Michi is struggling or suffering at the hands of her stepfather, and Savvy is struggling at the hands of her aunt. I don't want to give too much of the plot away, but it is a house of horrors, legitimately, and they are all they have in that house. And so eventually, with that understanding of dirty ENT, we got, we have to get up out of here. And each was waiting for the other. They promised not to leave without the other. And finally, it's time. Savvy is working at a restaurant as a waitress. She's not really making no money. Michi is a stripper or exotic dancer, who is making enough money to hold them down for a little bit while they figure it out. So they end up going to this motel, which like is not in good condition, but they're together, they're safe, and they're going to figure it out. Now, while they're going through this, Michi invites Savvy to a party because she's working there and she wants Savvy to get out the house. 3 critical things happen that night. 1, Michi connects with Titan. Titan is Shabu's brother. He's the youngest of the clan. There's Relic, there's Shabu, and there's Titan. And so Titan is like the social media star. Relic is the mastermind of it all. He's the eldest, and then Shabu is the hitter. And so Titan has a thing for Michi from on set. So that's when they first start their connection. Nothing happens with that for a long time. But that's when they first have that connection. He's trying to let her know that he sees something there. He wants them to play like their relationship for social media. It becomes a whole to-do. Michi is not here for it, and she's offended that he would ask. So that's one major thing that happens that night. Second major thing that happens that night. Savvy meets Shabu, which changes her entire life and his as well. Life trajectories altered because in that moment there's this instant connection. There's a draw. It starts off very messy, just the situation. I won't tell too much, but we know Savvy has snake friends, and Shabu is, you know, a little bit in the streets and also has a situation at home. It's a lot going on, the way it usually goes. So that happened. There's a connection. At some point, Shabu has a situation and he needs to leave. At this point though, Savvy is a little messed up. Shabu leaves her in a room, but it's locked somehow, and her boyfriend at the time is supposed to come pick her up. Some other things happen and go down. The night does not go as planned. Changes everything for Savvy, right? So we spend the next couple of books trying to figure out what's happening with that storyline. Also, we learn and find out not shortly after that that Savvy is pregnant. So what are we gonna do with this? It's a lot happening, and that's what this first book is about, is Savvy and Michi figuring out, really Savvy figuring out what is happening at this point in her life, who will she be, and what does it all mean for her life and trajectory moving forward. So that's book one. We don't really end it with a resolution. She has scandalous friends. We see the drama, but I am invested in the storyline and the outcomes enough to immediately go to book two. So book two is the story of Shabu. Now, Shabu, this story is also still very much about Savvy and Shabu and their relationship, but we get to learn more about Shabu and how his profession impacts his mental health. And we get to see Savvy work through this with him, and we get to see their bond build. However, it gets tricky because Savvy thinks that she knows what she's signing up for, but she really doesn't. So when the ish hits home and it gets real, and you gotta really put the pedal to the metal, Savvy bows out. Now, this is my frustration with her, because he told you who he was. However, I also understand that theoretically understanding something and then actually experiencing something for yourself are two very different experiences. So they navigate this. This is also where we get more Pierre, who is a big character in the Treasure story. And so we get to see more of him here. He's always like the jokester, but we get to see him serious for like the first time. And I really enjoyed this book. I really did find the first, like, a little bit with Savvy and Shabu. I was like, it was complicated, but I enjoyed their story. I didn't always enjoy the back and forth, because I was like, guys, figure it out. Figure out if you are gonna like be for real or not. And their immaturities were just on Front Street. But the reality is, these are two young people, relatively young people. I think Savvy's 19, Shabu might be 23. And so these are still young people figuring out how they feel, what to do with these feelings, what does that mean? Can you mature and do it together in a way that's healthy? But you have never really seen healthy, so how do you navigate that? And we see a lot of that here. One thing about Antoinette Sherrill that I really appreciate is that we do get real situations, real feelings, real experiences, and real navigation. Nothing that occurs feels like it is sped along or it's made to have like a nice bow for presentation purposes. You're gonna get the real, you're gonna get the raw, you're gonna get the ugly, and that's what we see here of them trying to navigate and figure it out. And so that is book two. Really good. I gave book one and book two read nows. And then we get to book three, which was supposed to be the finale, which was interesting to me because here we get introduced to a lot more supporting characters. We get more of Relic, which we needed. We get the story more of Kennedy, which has an interesting connection and background to the family. We get more of Michi and Titan, which was so good. I love that about this book. One of my favorite things was watching their like evolution. And we get more of Savvy and Shabu and the drama they're in. This one was still good. It was my least favorite because, not because of the supporting characters. I loved all of that. My frustration with this book was that I wanted more from the supporting characters. I wanted more of their time. I wanted to have like resolutions to their situations, and I guess some of that will happen in the other book, like the story with what's happening with Relic. We are not getting enough of that. Relic is always seeming just disconnected from everyone else and removed, almost superior to everyone else, and I know that's not what he intends, but that is how he carries it and how it comes across. But on a personal level, I also understand like why he would move and maneuver that way. But we get more of that context. We get to know more about like Relic and the surprise that's altering his life. We get the storyline of Michi and Titan and their evolution, and we actually get to watch them play out what Titan originally proposed, which is them pretending to be a couple for social media, and the evolution of that and how it gets sticky and messy, and especially in this current context. Love seeing that because he's still out doing his thing with this girl while they're pretending, and it's a whole to-do. I love to watch their progression. I like how trust is such a central focus in all of these books, and how trust, having it or not having it, makes or breaks everything, and how it takes so long to build it, how it can be ruined in a second. And then how do you work to gain that back? Or do you even put in that level of effort, and what does that mean, and how it takes two people showing up vulnerably to actually do the work. Listen, fictional books, but real situations that really hit home for me. So I really did enjoy it. Like I said, Michi and Titan, we get that story, and I loved having them here. My frustration though was that I wanted more of our characters and less sex. This book had the most sex of all the books, and I didn't feel like it was necessary. I didn't feel like we needed that many sex scenes. I felt like it was like a little distracting, and I wanted more of the actual story. And here, this book for me, more than even book 4, felt like a connector, felt like a filler to move the storyline along. And so for that reason, it wasn't my favorite. I thought it was cool. I gave it a read when you have time. But like I said, this book did help set up book 4, which is itself supposed to be the interlude. But like I said, book 4 is the one, okay? It was so good. But overall, I love this series. I'm going to definitely continue reading it. I'm going to pick up other things that Antoinette Sherrill has written because I appreciate this series so much. And so I absolutely recommend that you all read it now as soon as you can. There are some other like series that I'm going to get into that I've heard good things about, and I don't doubt that they're good. But this is one of the better ones I've read. Not a story, but a series, right? This, I'm gonna, ooh, are we doing that? I think we are doing that. Okay, so this one for me is like up there with Ethic and Butterfly. And for me, I prefer Butterfly more than I prefer Ethic. We're not about to fight about that. Okay, I know how the girlies love Ethic. However, for me, I was always most invested in Morgan and Messiah and Amik in that storyline. So Ethic was good. Don't get me wrong. Ethic was good. It carried us all the way through. But for me, Butterfly will always be the one. And for me, this series, I put it up there with Butterfly. Like, I'm invested in these characters. I want to know what's going to happen. I am planning to get physical copies of Treasure for sure. I probably will end up getting the entire series. But Treasure is the one. I need a signed copy of Treasure. But anyway, those are my thoughts of this series. I loved it. I loved it down. Like, y'all should read it immediately. And I don't come here and say that often, but this is the one. Like, there's only one book that for me was mid, but not mid enough. Not even mid. That's too low. It was cool. It was good. It just wasn't the of the other ones. And so that's great for a 3.5 book, 4-book series. That's heavy, and I know it's only going to continue to go up. I know Relic's story is going to be crazy because Relic has a lot going on, and I'm excited for Titan's story. I hope Titan gets his own story as well. We don't give enough of Titan in the books, honestly, and so I'm interested to see that evolution also. But again, love the series. So good. Loved it down. Have y'all read it? Let me know in the comments if you haven't read it. Please do yourself the favor and just do me the honor of you going and read it immediately and then coming back and sharing your take with me. As always, I am Ms. Malcolm Hughes, one who believes that books are sometimes better than people. And until the next one, please remember to give time, to be kind to each other, and to have the very best day of your life on purpose. Peace. Odabo. Adios. Ciao.